Good morning, I am Purnima and I welcome you to all in my class of English, and we are going to revise the same lesson, Birth. Birth is written by A.G. Cronin, as we all know, and here the writer describes how Andrew uh, Manson, a young doctor, made frantic effort to save a mother and a stillborn child. It was really a miracle, and he had put a lot of effort to save them. Finally, his tireless efforts succeeded in saving both mother and the child. The lesson describes all the fierce attempt made by the doctor to give a new ideas of life to the newborn baby. Now, children, I will be revising the few points before explaining the last part of the lesson. And the lesson starts with Dr. Andrew Manson. He is a doctor who is he has become a doctor, and he has started his practice under his senior doctor, Mr. Edward Page. So one day he returned back after meeting with his girlfriend. It was already nearly midnight when Manson reached his house. He saw that one person whose name was Joe Morgan. He was waiting for him since last 1 hour, and as he was Joe and his wife were married nearly 20 years ago, and his wife was expecting his first child. She needed medical help before time. Together they set out for 12 Bliana Terrace. John stood outside, lit only by an oil lamp. Mrs. Morgan's mother was also there with a stout midwife. They were standing beside the patient. Okay, so Joe Morgan, he brought Dr. Andrew Manson to his house, as his wife was going to deliver a baby, and the delivery was going to be very complicated because after 20 years they were expecting their first child. She and the midwife, Mrs. Mrs. Joe Morgan's mother was standing beside her, as well as one stout midwife was also standing beside her. She and the midwife were standing beside the patient. Now the case demanded all his attention. The case demanded all his attention. Andrew decided to remain. When he went and he saw the condition of the patient, he made a decision that he will not move from there. He will remain till both the child and the mother is safe. And this case demanded all his attention. In the case, his thoughts were heavy and confused. He thought of all those marriages which were dismal failure. So when he was sitting in the kitchen for a cup of tea, he was thinking of the failure of the marriages, and they were not happy. Some persons' marriages, he was thinking, who were having a unhappy married life. So even he was confused whether his married life would be all right or not, because that evening when he returned after meeting his girlfriend Christine, it was a disappointed evening for him. Now, the case demanded all his attention, and so children, he was very much upset with the girl whom he was thinking of marriage. She must have fighted with him, and he was thinking about his relationship with that girl. Well, it was an hour passed, and it was a long and harsh struggle for Mrs. Joe Morgan. At last, the child was born, but he was lifeless. He was. This was when he saw the baby, he was very much worried. Well, frantic effort to save Susan Morgan. Andrew gazed at the lifeless child. A shiver of horror passed over him. He was torn between two emotions. He wanted to save the child, he had to save the mother also. Now children, he really wanted to save the child, but before that he wanted to save the mother. The dilemma was really urgent. Instinctively, he gave the child to the nurse. Now, finally, he decided to whom he should save first, and then he took a decision that he would save the mother first. So, he turned his attention to Susan Morgan. She lay collapsed, almost pulseless. Her strength was ebbing. The doctor injected the medicine. After a few minutes of feverish effort, Susan's heart strengthened. She was out of danger now. He could safely leave her now. Then doctor mentioned he wanted to pay attention to the child now. Where is the child? Asked Dr. Andrew to the midwife. The midwife made a frightened gesture. She had placed it beneath the bed. The doctor pulled out the child from among the newspaper. He was a boy, perfectly formed. The limp, warm body was white and soft. The limbs seemed boneless. The whiteness meant only one thing, that was lack of oxygen. The unconscious condition was caused by lack of oxygen in the blood. The skin was pale, the pulse was weak, so it was very difficult to save the child also. Well, he did not lose hope. He started working hard to save the child. Andrew labored in vain for half an hour. He still persisted in one last effort, so he started children working very hard for the child, but finally could not get success, and he decided that he was hopeless. But again, he thought that he still persisted in one last effort. So finally, children, what he had done, he had rubbed the child with a rough towel. He went on crushing and releasing the little chest with both his hands. He was trying to get breath into the limp body. Then a miracle took place. The pygmy chest gave a short heave. The doctor redoubled his effort feverishly. The child was gasping now, deeper and deeper. His skin was slowly turning pink, and then finally came the child's cry. The nurse shouted in joy, it's come alive. Andrew handed her the child. He went downstairs. Outside, he found Joe standing on the pavement. He had a tense but expectant face. The doctor disclosed that everything was fine. Joe was relieved to know that both the mother and the child were safe and sound. So children, finally he had saved the baby. Okay, and now I will be doing the explanation of the lesson. Uh, in this lesson, children, the child was there, but it was a stillborn child. Okay, almost not having a life, and Dr. Andrew mentioned he had made a great effort to uh, bring the child back to the life, and finally he has got it. Now children, we were at page number 66, and page number 67, sorry. Well, he was sitting in the kitchen. He was having a tea given by the Joe Morgan's mother. He was sipping the tea and was thinking of the unmarried life which were not successful. Suddenly he heard the word. Susan said not to give her the chloroform if it would harm the uh, baby. Children. So her mother told to the doctor that Susan, her daughter, she told not to give her the chloroform if it would harm the baby. She awfully set upon this child. Set upon is, children, she wanted to have. What is the meaning of set upon? she wanted to have. Dr. Bach, her old eyes warm at a sudden thought. She added in a low tone, "Ah, I, we all are, we all are, I fancy." So she is telling that, doctor, we are all uh, fancy. That means we are all excited here. Okay, fancy is imagine. Uh, she's telling we're all imagining that everything would be fine. So fancy here is imagining. He collected himself with an effort. It won't do any harm. The anesthetic, he said kindly. They will be all right. So doctor told to the mother that no need to fear. This anesthetic. Anesthetic is a drug that made a person unable to feel anything. So what is the meaning of anesthetic? A drug that made the person to feel unable to feel anything. He said kindly, they will be all right. The doctor told her, no need to worry. Both the mother and the child will be all right. Here the nurse voice was heard calling from the top landing. Now children, then suddenly he heard that the nurse was calling him from the top upstairs landing. Andrew glanced at the clock, which now showed 3:30. Andrew looked at the clock, so it was showing 3:30. He rose and went up to the bedroom. He perceived that he might now begin his work. Perceived means noticed. Okay. So he went to the bedroom. He saw the condition of the patient, and finally, children, he decided that he would continue his work. So here perceived. Perceived means noticed. Perceived. An hour elapsed. Elapsed means passed. Hour elapsed. Elapsed means passed. So an hour has passed. It was long, harsh struggle until now, till the story began. It was really a very long struggle, and it was hard struggle also. Then, as the first streak of dawn strayed past the broken edge of the blind, the child was born lifeless. Okay, streak is long thin marks. Streak of dawn. Straight is moved away past the broken edges of the blind. The child was born lifeless. Lifeless means he was motionless. He could not move any of the part of his body. As he gazed at the still form, a shiver of horror passed over Andrew. Now, children, when he saw the body, it was still motionless, not moving, and a shiver of horror passed to the doctor. After all that he had promised, because children, he had a fear, he promised everyone that the child and the mother will be saved. So his face heated with his own efforts, okay, uh, chilled suddenly. Now children, his face, he struggled hard to deliver the baby, and now when he saw the baby lifeless, he was very much in trouble. He was very much chilled. Okay, he hesitated, torn between his desire to attempt rusticated the child. Now children, his wanted his the main desire was not to pay attention now to the mother. Now the main desire was to make the child breathe again, and his obligation. But his obligation is duty. Obligation is at his obligation, his duty. But his duty was towards the mother also, who was herself in a desperate state. Desperate means a state where person has to be worried. So she was herself in a desperate state. The dilemma was so urgent he did not solve it consciously. Now, children, there was a dilemma in his mind. What is the meaning of dilemma? Which action he should do first, whether to save the child or to save the baby. The dilemma was so urgent that he did not solve it consciously. Blindly, instinctively, he gave the child to the nurse and turned his attention. Now, children, he gave the child to the nurse and turned his attention towards the mother. So, who now lay collapsed, who was now lying collapsed, almost pulseless. Pulseless children, she was having a very critical condition. Her pulse has stopped working, and not yet out of the other upon her side. His haste was displeased, a frantic against her ebbing strength. Ebbing is decreasing. Ebbing is decreasing. Okay. So her condition was deteriorating. It took him only an instant to smash a glass ampule. Ampule is a small container or a glass. So he took a glass, children, and then what he did, and inject the medicine. And there he injected the medicine. Then he flung down the hypodermic syringe and worked unsparingly to restore the flaccid woman. Flaccid is soft and weak. Flaccid is soft and weak. So, children, his patient was very soft and it was very weak, and he was making his all the attempt to save her unsparingly, severely. Okay. After a few minutes of feverish effort, feverish is quick. Here, feverish means quick. Quick effort, her heart strengthened. She started gaining strength. Her heart started strengthening, and he saw that he might safely leave her. Now, children, he was sure that now she is safe. He can safely leave her. He swung round in his shirt sleeve, his hair sticking to his damp brow. So he swung round, he turned round in his shirt sleeves, his hair sticking to his damp brow. Where is the child? The midwife made a frightened gesture. She had placed it beneath the mat. Now, children, he had to pay. Now he wanted to save the child. So he is asking the midwife, where is the child? In a flash, Andrew knelt down, fishing amongst the sodden newspaper below the bed. Sodden is an extremely wet newspaper. So there was the child was kept on the sodden newspaper. What is the meaning of sodden? Sodden is a wet newspaper. He pulled out the child, a boy perfectly formed. He saw the child. It was a baby boy, and he was perfectly formed. The limp, warm body was white and soft as tallow. Tallow is the hard fat of animals melted and used to make soap, candles. So, children, his warm body was white and soft as tallow. The cord hastily slashed. The umbilical cord, children, hastily slashed. It was cut, lay like a broken stem. The skin was of a lovely texture, smooth and tender. The skin was of the child was very good. The head lolled. Lolled means hung in a relaxed manner. The head lolled on the thin neck. The limbs seemed boneless. So that means the condition of the child was really critical. Okay, and he is trying his best to save him. Still kneeling, and you stared, children. I am at page number 68. Still kneeling, Andrew stared at the child with a haggard frown. Haggard is looking very tired, and frown is worried expression. So So Haggard, okay, Haggard is looking very tired. Looking very tired. Haggard is looking very tired. And frown is worried expression. So Dr. Henry was looking already very tired with a lot of worried expression on his face. The whiteness meant only one thing: asphyxia pallida. So children, that then he started noticing the baby is the whiteness meant only one thing to the doctor, that he is suffering from asphyxia pallida. This is the name of a disease. Okay, and suffocation or unconscious condition caused by a lack of oxygen and excess of carbon dioxide in the blood, accompanied by paleness of skin, weak pulse, and loss of reflexes. So he had seen in the Samaritan to the treatment that had been used. Instantly he was on his feet. So he children, that he had seen in Samaritan, and he had also remembered how the doctor was treating that patient, and he immediately children he started took the action. Get me hot water and cool water, he threw it out to the nurse. Suddenly he shouted to the nurse, he told the nurse to get a hot water and cold water and basin too, quick. And he told he need a basin also, that means something where he could put the baby. But doctor, she flattered. She spoke without a confidence, her eyes on the pallet means pale and yellowish body of the child. Quick, he shouted. Now he told me, I don't want to hear anything. I am whatever I'm telling you, just do it. Snatching a blanket, he laid the child upon it and began the special method of respiration. Now children, he put the child, first of all, he took a blanket, he put the child there, and with a very special method, he gave a artificial respiration to the baby. The basins arrived. In the meanwhile, the basins arrived. The ewer, the big iron kettle. Ewer is a large jug, a large kettle. Um, the big iron kettle. Frantically, he splashed cold water into one basin, into the other. He mixed water as hot as his hand could bear. Then, like some crazy juggler, he hurried the child between the two, now plunging it into the icy, now into the steaming bath. Now, children, he took the child, and first he was putting in the cold water, then he was putting him into the hot water, and he started doing for this thing for few minutes. 15 minutes passed. Sweat was now running into Andrew's eyes, blinding him. Now 15 minutes later, children, sweat was now running into Andrew's eyes, blinding him. One of his sleeves hung down, dripping. His breath came pantingly, but no breath came from the lax body of the child. Doctor was breathing hard. He was very much tired. His whole face was with sweat, but there was no breath to the child still. A desperate. Children, desperate is feeling of shock and sense of defeat was pressing on the doctor. A racking hopelessness. Racking is total. Racking is total. So a racking hopelessness came to the doctor. Okay. And well, he felt the midwife watching him in a stark consternation. Okay. Consternation means a great surprise. Stark is total. So he felt at the midwife watching him in total shock. While there, pressed back against the wall where she had all the time remained, and her body was pressing against the wall where she remained all the time. her hand pressed to her throat, uttering no sound. Her hand was pressed to the throat where she uttered no sound. Her eyes burning upon him was the old woman. Her eyes burning upon him, and children, her eyes, the old woman's eyes were burning upon him. He remembered her longing for a grandchild as great as had been her daughter's longing for the child. So he started remembering the pleading of the grandmother for the grandchild. He remembered the mother, that how she told him not to give chloroform as it would harm the baby. All dashed away now, futile beyond remedy. Futile is pointless. Okay. The floor was now a dragged bless. Drag means drag, draggled. Draggled means wet. The floor was wet. Stumbling over a soaping towel, Andrew almost dropped the child, which was now wet and slippery in his hand like a strange white fish. And children, the child body was becoming slippery. It was very critical case for him to handle. For mercy's sake, doctor, whimpered the midwife, it's stillborn. Stillborn means born dead. Now, children, finally, midwife told him, no, why are you working hard for this child? It is still born dead. It is born dead. Andrew did not heed her. Heed her, pay attention. And heed her means paid attention. So children, Andrew was really very much worried, and the nurse was telling, the midwife was telling that there is no use working hard with a dead child. Andrew did not heed her. Andrew did not pay attention to her word. Despairing, having labored in vain for half an hour, he felt, though he was feeling that whatever work he labored for half an hour he was doing, it was all in vain. In vain means it was useless. He still persisted in one last effort. Persisted is continued. Persisted is continued. Okay, so he had to pay attention. Persisted means continued. Dragging means total. Haggard means looking very tired. So he still persisted. Persisted means to continue. So he started persisting his last effort, rubbing the child with a rough towel. He started rubbing the child with a rough towel, crushing and releasing the little chest with both his hands. He started, children, crushing and releasing the little chest with both his hands, trying to get breath into limp body. He wanted to get breath into the limp body. And then, as by miracle, children, something great has happened. The pygmy chest with his hand enclosed gave a short convulsive heave. Pygmy is very small. Okay, so suddenly, children, a miracle has happened. The pygmy chest, the very small chest of the child, which his hand enclosed, he put both his hand on the chest, and you turned giddy. The sense of life is springing beneath his finger. He could feel, children, some sense of life. Maybe he must have felt the throbbing of the heart or whatever. And Andrew turned giddy. Giddy means, children, he felt, he was so tired, he felt as if he would, children, giddy, he means dizzy. He was feeling giddy. Giddy means dizzy. And Andrew turned giddy, the sense of life springing beneath his finger after all that unavailing striving. Unavailing is useless. Striving means effort was so feverishly. Okay, that means, children, he felt that all his effort was now he can, children, bring back the child. He had to life. He had a little hope of that child. He would become alive. The And children, he redoubled his effort. The effort which he was making, like the pressing of the child, he redoubled it. The child was gasping now deeper and deeper. So he hence children, Andrew was almost, children, what he had done, he had made the child to breathe. Now in next video I will be so from here, children, this is the end of the video now, and only the last part of the chapter is there, so we can do the chapter and the question answer in our next video. Thank you and have a nice day ahead.